My plans are local tribunal, 1. 2, local tribunal. Anybody who wants to guess 3? Local tribunal. May God bless you.
For now, what we want to confirm is that he's dead, and the rest will be you will be informed.
I came purely as an independent pathology, the family. One thing I can say at this stage is that all of us agree with the findings, and there is no disagreement at all. It will, of course, take some time to actually develop the science behind this and review it. So at this stage, we will have to await the outcome of medical science to determine the cause of death.
A man of law, a voice of reason, a warrior for justice, is silenced. On a quiet April morning in 2013, Kenya woke up to a devastating news. Mutula Kilonzo, a brilliant lawyer, respected senator, and a fierce advocate for truth, was found dead in his private ranch. What followed was a tangled web of conflicting reports, missing details, and a family crying out for the truth. A man who had so much left to do, gone too soon. Was it high blood pressure, as the autopsy claimed, or was it something far more sinister? Poison, a cover-up, or maybe betrayal? In this episode of Dark Echoes, we dive deep into one of Kenya's most haunting political deaths. Subscribe now, because in the shadows of power, the truth rarely walks free. Dark Echoes 254. Before he became a name ached in courtrooms, parliaments, and political debates, Mutula Kilonzo was simply a boy born amongst the hill of Mboni in Makueni County, Kenya. It was the year 1948, a time of colonial rule, struggle, and quiet resistance. His childhood was kept out of modesty, tradition, and the deep values of education, responsibility, and resilience. In those early years, young Mutula stood out, not for mischief but for brilliance. He was sharp, observant, and quick with words, traits that would one day make him a legal titan. From a young age, he was encouraged to pursue learning, even when education was a privilege for the few. That support pushed him into classrooms where he shone brighter than most. He attended Machakos School, one of the few reputable institutions available to African students at the time. Here, he began to shape his mind and unknowingly his destiny. After excelling in his studies, he went on to pursue law at the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, a place known for radical thinkers, political firebrands, and rising African intellectuals. Mutula didn't just fit in, he stood out. He studied with passion and purpose, knowing that the law was not just a career but a tool for change. Returning to Kenya, he began his legal career in 1970s. In a world where many feared power, Mutula leaned into it. He built his law firm and soon became known as shrewd, commanding figure in the courtrooms, never afraid to speak truth, even when it was unpopular. He quietly rose to prominence and was appointed personal legal advisor to President Daniel Arap Moi. It was a controversial role, one that earned him critics and admirers alike. But Mutula wasn't concerned with public approval. He believed in navigating power with both caution and courage. Over the years, his legal influence grew, and so did his ambitions. He entered politics, becoming Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, Minister for Education, and finally, the first senator for Makueni County after the 2010 constitutional reforms. In every post, he carried himself with the weight of responsibility and the sting of honesty. He didn't play politics, he challenged it. But behind the legal gowns, the political debates, and public speeches, Mutula was also a man with private life, a man who loved deeply, who cared for his family, and who carried personal dreams that never made it into newspapers. He was married to Dr. Nduku Kilonzo, a respected public health expert known for her work in HIV and advocacy and education. Together, they built a home that valued excellence, discipline, and impact, while their marriage would later face quiet struggles and distance. It remained an important part of his life. Mutula was also a father, one who took great pride in his children. Among them is Mutula Kilonzo Jr., who would follow directly in his father's footsteps, first as a lawyer, then as a senator, and now as a key figure in Kenyan's politics. When the elder Kilonzo passed, it was his son who picked up the torch, mourning but never retreating. It was clear the legacy lived on. Though proud of his public achievements, those close to him say that Mutula Kilonzo was most fulfilled when surrounded by family, engaged in intellectual conversation, mentoring his children, or walking through his expensive Manzoni ranch where he would later take his final breath. He was a complex man, tough yet compassionate, stern yet loving, private yet always under the public eye. To his supporters, he was a champion of justice. To his critics, he was too bold, too blunt, too fearless. But to his children, he was a father. To his wife, companion. To Makueni, a lion whose roar echoed long after his silence. His life was far from perfect, marked by controversy, high expectation, and intense pressure. But it was also filled with purpose, triumph, and unwavering pursuit of truth. The man who challenged authority, defended democracy, and pushed for constitutional reform did not just live, he left a mark. When his life came to a sudden end in April 2023, Kenya lost more than a politician. Mutula Kilonzo wasn't just a lawyer. He was the lawyer, a fierce, brilliant, and fearless mind who carved his name into the legal and political history of Kenya. His career spanned decades, marked by sharp intellect, unshakable courage, and a burning desire to reform the very system he once defended. After completing his law studies at the University of Dar es Salaam, Kilonzo returned to Kenya during a political volatility and legal complexity. It didn't take long for him to make his mark. In the 1970s, he established Kilonzo and Company Advocates, one of the most respected law firms in the country. But what really launched him into national prominence was his appointment as President Daniel Arap Moi's personal lawyer. For years, Mutula worked at the center of power, defending the president, navigating land disputes, and handling politically sensitive cases. While his alliance with Moi brought both influence and criticism, it also gave Kilonzo a first-hand look at how politics and law collided behind closed doors. He would later use that knowledge not to protect the system, but to challenge and reform it. Mutula's transitioned into politics in the early 2000s, where his legal background quickly made him a powerful voice in parliament. In 2003, he became a nominated MP, and by 2008, he was appointed Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. It was in this role that Kilonzo cemented his legacy, not as a loyalist but as a reformer. He challenged the 2010 Constitution of Kenya, pushing for legal clarity, human rights protection, and checks on executive power. His speeches were passionate, often fiery, and laced with precision. He demanded transparency, fought corruption, and held even the highest officers accountable. Colleagues called him a constitutional purist, someone who believed the law should not serve the powerful but protect the people. Later, he also served as Minister of Education, where he introduced reforms to improve the credibility of national exams and restore dignity to Kenya's educational system. Even in this role, he remained the same Mutula, bold, uncompromising, and deeply invested in justice. In 2013, he became the first elected senator to Makueni County, a position he held until his untimely death. His role was to represent the people, safeguard county interests, and ensure fair distribution of national resources. He embraced it fully, and within months, he had become one of the most respected senators in the House. A lawyer, a reformer, a minister, a senator, Mutula wore many titles, but his mission never changed: to uphold justice and protect the Constitution no matter the cost. On the morning of April 27th, 2013, Kenya was shaken. News broke that Mutula Kilonzo, the newly elected senator of Makueni County, has been found dead in his Manzoni ranch home in Machakos. Just 64 years old, healthy, active, and full of plans for the new Senate term, his sudden death didn't just confuse the country, it haunted it. According to early reports, he had spent the evening of April 26th with staff and family appearing perfectly fine. He had eaten dinner and retired to bed, but by morning he was found unresponsive by a staff member, lying on his bed with signs that something had gone terribly wrong. The official narrative moved quickly. He had died in his sleep, but questions began to arise immediately. The scene was too clean, too undisturbed. Witnesses claimed that vomit was present near the body, and some reports hinted a foam around his mouth. Classic sign that can point to poisoning. Family members, particularly his son Mutula Kilonzo Jr., voiced concern about the rushed conclusion and demanded an independent postmortem. What followed was a maze of investigations, public confusion, and conflicting reports. The initial autopsy, led by the government pathologist, cited natural causes, pointing specifically to high blood pressure as the culprit, but the family wasn't convinced. They invited renowned British pathologist Dr. Ian Madison Calder to conduct a second, more thorough examination. Dr. Calder's findings were disturbing. He discovered traces of chemical substances in Mutula's stomach, intestines, and liver. Some of these substances were unidentifiable, while others resembled drugs or toxin compounds. The results weren't enough to declare outright poisoning, but they cast serious doubt in the narrative of simple hypertensive attack. More confusion followed when it was revealed that some sample had been tampered with, and others mysteriously went missing during the testing phase. Who had access to these samples? Who stood to benefit from their disappearances? Despite these red flags, the official position remained that Mutula died of natural causes, worsened by his known hypertension. The final report, although laced with medical jargon and loopholes, conveniently avoided the possibility of foul play. The public remained skeptical. Many believed that Mutula, an outspoken critic of corruption and constitutional purist, and a man who knew where Kenya's political bodies were buried, had simply become too dangerous. He had made enemies, and powerful ones. To this day, no arrests have been made, no new inquiries opened, and no justice served. His family continues to live with unanswered questions, and his supporters continue to mourn not just the loss of a man, but the loss of the truth. Was it illness? Was it poison? Or was it something darker? Something Kenya wasn't ready to confront? In the silence of Manzoni, only the wind knows what really happened that night. When news of Mutula Kilonzo's death broke, it sent shockwaves through Kenya. A brilliant mind gone, a fearless voice is silenced. The nation mourned, but beneath the grief lay a storm of suspicion. He wasn't just any man. He was a constitutional defender, a political reformer, and to many, a threat to power. Tribute poured in from all corners. Parliament observed a moment of silence. Legal minds called him a fallen lion. But even as the country grieved, his family demanded answers. Soon after, his son ran for his father's Senate seat and won. It wasn't just political continuity. It was a stunt, a message. The fire hadn't died with the father. It had moved into the son. And as some people would say, his silence was bought. His wife, Dr. Mutula Kilonzo, continued her work in public health, channeling her pain into purpose. But behind closed doors, the family lived with unanswered questions, lost medical samples, and whispers of foul play that were never pursued. The public slowly moved on, but a scar remained, one that raised a deeper question. Is Kenya safe for truth-tellers? Over a decade later, Mutula's death still feels unresolved. No one has been held accountable. The silence around that night at Manzoni still speaks. Because when a man like Mutula Kilonzo dies suddenly, the secret and power orbiting him, it's never just death, it's a message, and we're still trying to read it.
The minister received Irene Nduku's chilling text message on the 26th of June this year. It read, quote, "Mutula Kilonzo, be ready to die. We were sent by our boss Boniface Nthiani Mutwiwa 07370 51194 or 0728 511 670 to come to your place Runda this weekend and rape your wife and your daughter and shoot you to death."
So we have to follow his instructions.
Nduku's message went on to explain that her boss works as a caretaker along State House Road, Bellway Gardens. She further wrote that her boss was the one who gave orders to have Imenti Central MP Gitobu Imanyara threatened. Gitobu Imanyara has since gone public, claiming that he was accosted while driving along State House Road by unknown people who forced him to pledge loyalty to presidential aspirant Uhuru Kenyatta to save his life. Mutula also raised the matter in Parliament. He is the one who connected explosion in town at Asanan's house, in Ngara Church, even in Mombasa, and many places. The message continues. He has big connections with the Al-Shabaab. So Mutula, be ready to die this coming weekend. We will even explode your whole house in Runda. End quote. Today, the courtroom saw the face behind the frightening text message. 25-year-old Irene Nduku. She confessed that she sent the text message to Mutula Kilonzo's phone number as instructed by her boss, Boniface Mutwiwa. Senior Principal Magistrate Lucy Nyambura convicted Nduku on her own plea of guilty. She will be sentenced on the 25th of this month as court awaits the prosecution to produce a report on her social status. Sylvia